Hey YouTube, it's Chris. Welcome back to my life. So we are, I can't believe it's been so long since I shot a video, but we're around 1978 right now. And we're going to kind of skew the timeline a little bit, but not really. Uh, Debate of where we can start this, but to keep this kind of a short video, we're going to start it in 1970 when things really kicked off. So my father, he's 22 years old at the time, is, excuse me, Ron, who's 22 years old at the time, is gathering information to put his marriage license together. And he found a document that changed his life and consequently everyone else's. And he takes this document to his mother and he said, "What the fuck is this?" And naturally, she was very helpful in identifying the document. "No, who the fuck is this?" "Well, that's me." "Who the fuck is Carol White?" So he found out, Ron, that the person he grew up calling Grandpa was not his grandfather. He was his grandmother's second husband, but he never adopted Carol. Now, I can't blame the guy for not understanding that because I saw Carol's high school yearbook and it had his last name. My great grandmother's second husband. Not legal, but I guess that's just the way they did things back then. So my father became, I'm not going to say obsessed, but I'm going to say it anyway, to figure out who his actual grandfather was. And this started another little rift in the family. My bastard grandfather, "Oh, the guy that helped raise you is your grandfather." And of course, the two idiot brothers who were spineless enough to just do whatever daddy said, they were the same way. And not a whole lot happened for a long time, for like 8 years. I grew up on the same lie, but it only took me 7 years before I realized, oh, the truth. So the summer of 1978, when we went to the Wisconsin State Fair, we made sure that we were there during the week. And I can't remember if it was a Friday or a Monday, but one of those days, because Dad wanted to go to, now my dad, he wanted to go to the Milwaukee County Courthouse to get his birth certificate changed because his birth certificate had the wrong name of his mother. It was the name that she just co-opted for fun, but wasn't actually legal. So he got that changed. And the clerk was lazy, grabbed the wrong stamp, and we get back to the car and we see that he's got a certified record of his death certificate. So it's kind of a family joke that he died in Milwaukee in 1978. And then for the next 20 years, it was a quest, better than that, obsession, word I used before, to find his grandfather, my great grandfather. We knew his name, Aloysius White. That's about all. Other than the story that he was in the Army in World War I and that he died of shell shock. And as time went on, when I got a little bit older, there were other stories. And anyway, Carol, I don't know if it was that her brain was pickled, which it was, or if she was intentionally trying to stonewall, which I don't really think, even though her husband wanted her to. But she just gave us story after story after story. She was naming towns that didn't even exist. And there was just one dead end after another, over and over and over again. And then things sort of kind of picked up a little bit toward the late 90s when I was in law school and I had CALR, Computer Assisted Legal Research. And I saw from taking that class, wow, being on the internet is really cool. Oh man, I have got to get this at home. And so I finally figured out how to get it hooked up. And of course, I'm not going to let my parents use my computer. But it gave them the idea of going up to Lansing to the state library and using the computers there and computers in Jackson too. And so the internet really helped them try to find a lot more information, and especially as the years went on and more World War I vets were dying and more records were becoming available as a result, they were starting to find more and more, and we were getting closer and closer. But like in 1978, when we went to Wisconsin, I remember going to my father's aunt Hildy's apartment in South Milwaukee. Yeah, that was fun. And yeah, I'm just a little 7-year-old kid, just kind of trying to entertain myself in this old lady's apartment. So there's like no toys. Well, my father is grilling her for information about his grandfather, and nobody wanted to give anything up. And so, long story short, which will come into more videos, it wasn't until December of 1998. Okay, so more than 20 years, almost 20 and a half years after that death certificate thing. And I was in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I called home. I said, "You're not going to believe where I'm at." And I'm not going to tell you, that's a later video. But my mother had answered the phone, and she said, "You're not going to believe where we were today." In December of 1998, after finding out sometime in the spring in 1970 that the man who he thought was his grandfather actually wasn't, my parents visited my great grandfather's grave in Indiana. He died at a VA. They found that online in service records, and went down there one day and visited the grave. Dad said it looked like nobody had visited it in 40, 50 years. But after that day, I've been there at least 3 times, because I know that the 3 of us went once, and then I think the year or maybe 2 years after Dad died, Mom took me down there. Of course, I would probably never be able to get down there without my navigator. I would end up, Lord knows, Dubuque, probably. That's not even Indiana. That's the point. But anyway, that is the story of my great grandfather, the man who was lost for well over 20 years and probably a lot longer. Thank you very much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and as always, take care of yourselves, YouTube.